Hello, my name is Sarah Walworth. I'm the owner of the Tech Editor Hub. And today I have in the studio with me, Bronwyn Hahn. Hello, Bronwyn.
Hello.
And I hope I pronounced that correct. I didn't even ask that beforehand.
You say it fine.
All right. So Bronwyn has over a decade of experience as a technical editor. She's also a yarn pattern designer. She has branded herself as Bronwyn the Brave, the ultimate yarn superhero. She has X-ray vision, which represents an unparalleled attention to detail, spotting potential issues before they arrive. Her telepathy helps her understand the unspoken needs of both the designer and maker. And she has a cloak of invisibility, which I love. She makes designers look like the experts they are, and no one even has to know she was there. And with transmutation, she turns simple yarns into extraordinary, thoughtful designs. Thank you for being here, Bronwyn. I'm so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. That's like crazy.
It's crazy. And hello, everyone who's watching live. Feel free, if you are on the YouTube channel, to toss any questions you have for Bronwyn into the chat. Hello, everyone from Seattle to Columbia River Gorge. Oh, more from Seattle, Jacksonville, New Mexico. I'm so excited to see you all here. Thank you for coming. All right, Bronwyn.
So I'm super excited. Thanks for being here.
Yes. Okay, so let's get into it. I want to see your yarn.
What are you making right now? So I'm making this is just a baby bandana cowl. It will eventually be quite a bit longer. I ripped it out 2 days ago. So yeah, actually I ripped it out twice, yesterday and the day before. So I decided that it didn't have enough drape. So we'll see how this is going. You know, swatches lie, so.
Yes, yeah. And so that's a design that you're producing, correct?
Yeah, it's the same stitch pattern essentially as a mitten pattern that I published a couple of years ago, and this will be a companion to that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How exciting. I'm working on a summer top. Of course, I have refashioned the pattern because I can't ever just knit it. Can you just knit a pattern as is? I have a hard time.
Yeah, it's hard.
So, I'm not going to remember the name of it. It's Bolan, Bolan, and I made it so that it actually has neck drop, and it's like a hemp. No, not hemp. Nettle. The yarn has nettle in it, so it's really soft. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not going to be able to knit while we're talking, but I want to because I'm very close to finishing the first side.
Oh, so that's exciting.
Hey, all. Thank you all for being here live. All right, let's jump into some questions. And remember, if you're watching us, I'd love to hear your questions. If something we're talking about brings up a question, toss it into the chat. All right, what were you doing?
Jen wants to know what we're wearing.
What you're wearing? Oh, I'm wearing this nice little top from Loft. How about you, Bronwyn?
Mine is a t-shirt that actually my friend sells, Prairie Bag Works. She sells knitting bags and cotton coiled bowls, but then she also sells these. So prairiebagworks.net.
Okay, I'm going to make you bigger so we can see it.
Oh, gosh.
Wait a second. Oh, I don't know. Well, actually, I don't know if I can.
Does that work?
Solo layout. There we go. That's cute.
It's
all right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Let's go on to the questions. What were you doing before you became a technical editor?
I worked in insurance for several years, quite a lot of years before my son was born. And then when he was born, actually up until the day that I went into labor, I was working in insurance, and then I quit to be a stay-at-home mom. And then when he was getting ready for kindergarten, I was struggling to find anything that would let me stay home and while he was in school and like not feel guilty about it. And I know I shouldn't, but you know how that goes. So yeah, that's what I was doing before.
Were you a knitter or crocheter?
I know I wasn't. I was multi-craftual all my life. So I was in 4-H and I sewed and did cross stitch and like all kinds of piddly little crafts and stuff. My mom gave that to me, the fickleness of crafting. But I didn't start knitting until my son was just over a year old, like actually 15 years ago this month. So he was finally taking reliable breaks, naps, and I could get back to some crafting. And it wasn't even like an intentional thing. I was planning to sew something, and my sewing machine, which had been in hibernation, was broken, and I needed to do something, and it was going to take months before it would be repaired. So I'm like, okay, now what? So then I'm like, well, maybe I can knit something, like, because I was doing cloth diapers, and I learned to knit, like what do you call them, shorties, to cover the cloth diapers. So that's how it all started 15 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you hadn't been knitting very long before you became a technical editor.
It was about 4 years, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
What made you decide to become a technical editor?
I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know, like, I knew that they existed for like magazines, but I didn't know that it was a thing for independent designers. Like, just didn't know. And then I was friends with Paula from the Knitting Pipeline podcast. She lived in my town, and she and I would go to Stitches Midwest every year, and we met some women in the lobby, and we just were talking, and they mentioned this woman who was kind of revamping all of the patterns for a yarn company. And Paula knew that I was looking for something to do with my son going to school. This was like a month before school started. And like the light bulb just went off for both of us. We looked at each other like, this is your calling. This is what you need to do. It was just like both of us knew right then. It was kind of amazing. So then of course, we were in Chicago for Stitches, and we're like, as soon as I get home, I'm like, actually probably before, I was like on my phone and like trying to figure this out. And so I looked it up, and I think Jolie had done a tech editing course, but it wasn't an active course at the time. And I think maybe she gave me some tips on like how to go about it. And so I had 4 years of knitting patterns in my library. So I kind of just started by going back to patterns that I had worked from, maybe had already had problems with, or ones that I enjoyed knitting. And I kind of just created the spreadsheet, figured out like what I would recommend, what are the good things to look at. And I kind of did the calculations, and Craftsy was big back then. So I took Craftsy classes. So it was just kind of a crazy little thing. And then Paula had already published a couple of patterns. So she knew that, like, the reason she knew that I would be good at it was because I had already looked at her patterns. She had, I don't know, like at least a few shawl patterns with Quince & Company at that time. And so it was one of those, hey, can you look this over kind of a thing. And that's how it all started. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really special. It's neat how so many of us who now are tech editors had this like light bulb moment.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a little bit of serendipity. Like, it's just
definitely.
cool that we get hooked up with the right person at the right time,
Exactly.
Hear about tech editing, and then go, where has this been in my life? This is who I am. So
exactly.
It's fantastic.
I've always been like a nerd, like a general nerd, but everybody says I'm a word nerd, but I'm also a math nerd. I'm a science nerd. I mean, I'm just a nerd. So I like to learn. Exactly. I like to learn about all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
Even history now. And I hated history in school because I had to memorize all the dates and stuff. But now I really enjoy the history too. Yeah. So I'm just a nerd.
It's really fun. So what's your workspace like?
So my workspace has evolved. You can imagine over almost 11 years of editing, I've changed my process.
So what did it start as, and then what has it evolved to?
It has always been with a laptop, and I know that's like odd in the editing world. But it started with a laptop, just a laptop, and probably a printed pattern some of the time. But then it has evolved. So maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I had it's called a trio. I don't know what you call it, like an extendable monitor. So because I was sitting in the living room like all the time, or wherever else I was, but it's not easy to have an extra monitor with a laptop unless you have a desk. Yes. And just the space in our house wasn't working right for me to have a desk. Plus, I want to watch TV while I'm working on my own designs and whatever. I don't watch TV while I'm editing. That would just be too much.
That would be too much for our brain stand.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't pay attention to the TV at all.
No.
But yeah, so I had it's like a magnet that sticks on the back that holds the extra monitor out to the side, and it's actually pretty slick. But then I got a different laptop that is a touch screen where I can flip it if I want to. So now my current setup, I guess, I have an L-shaped desk, so I can work over here if I need to, but most of my work happens here, where I have a laptop on like a riser, and I have 2 monitors.
Woohoo! There's something about having 2. You got to have 2. And tell us if you all are watching, I want to know if you have 2 monitors, because that was life-changing for me.
Yeah, not a whole lot happens over here because I'm right-handed, I think, and that's where my eye goes to. But yeah, if I need something else over here, I'll put it there. But
so do you put a pattern on one screen and spreadsheet on the other, or how do you make it work?
So it kind of depends on how I'm working on the pattern. So if it's like the second edit or future edits, I'll have the pattern that the current edit I'll have on my laptop screen. And then, so I have it's a touch screen, so I can draw on it with a stylus that, came with my laptop. So I need the touch screen ability on my laptop.
Yeah. So
that forces me here. And then on my right monitor, I usually do a split screen, and I have a spreadsheet on one half and the older version of the pattern, so I can play the spot the difference kind of thing.
I love that.
And here's a tip. If that's something that you that you struggle with or that you enjoy, that will help you as an editor, is to play those games, to play the hidden object games, and to play Where's Waldo, and spot the difference, those old cartoons you did when you were a kid. If you play those games,
we're dating ourselves by saying
I'm way past that. But yeah, I think that helps, though, that it trains your eyes to find the differences and to see things that are just something's not quite right. So that's my theory.
Love that tip.
Into it. So anyway, yeah, I have the current version on my laptop and the older version on a different screen, and then I play spot the differences, and then my spreadsheet is right next to it, so I can, and depending on what I'm doing, sometimes in the second edit, I don't need my spreadsheet quite as much.
Right.
So that makes a difference too. If it is, so yes, the split screen is genius. I'm so glad that came into being.
Right.
I really enjoy that.
So what's been the hardest part of tech editing for you? In your almost 11 years, what's been the hardest?
I think the hardest part for me is understanding that every tech editor works at their own pace, and that I shouldn't compare myself to everybody else. In the beginning, you hear all this information, like a sweater should take X number of hours, a shawl should take this many hours, or less than an hour. And I know that some people are just super quick, but I also know that I am able to pick up the fine details that a lot of people tend to miss. And I know that I'm really good at what I do. So just understanding that it might take me a little bit longer, but I'm worth it.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't want to sound cocky, but I know that I do find a lot of things like in patterns that I've looked at that say that this has been tech edited. Like, well, are you sure about that? Because sometimes things come through, and I
It happens.
no perfect. Like, I'm not perfect. I am a perfectionist, but I'm not perfect.
Right.
And I know that things sneak through. Like just this morning, I got an email that like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed that. And it's like,
Yeah, that happens to me.
But
on almost every pattern.
I know, it's like how did I miss that? But yeah, and I think we were talking earlier before the call about seeing the forest for the trees or not seeing the forest for the trees. But I think if you take a pass, like take a trees pass and you take a forest pass, so you look at the big picture and you look at the tiny details, and I think that is the trick, like one of the tricks, one of the 20 million tricks.
So, that's awesome.
That doesn't answer the direct question.
No. I think you're right though. We can fall, because we are perfectionists, we can fall into a comparison trap with other editors when our superpower is our own brain and we have to figure out how to make it work for us.
Right.
So what references or tools do you find yourself always reaching for in your work?
Excel is probably my biggest one. I created a template quite a few years ago, and I just keep adding to it. It's a living spreadsheet where I have formulas already in place for, like I've got a whole page that I keep track of my time, and I just hit a couple of keystrokes and it sets the date and then the time. And then every time I'm in there, every time I'm editing, I set a new line. If I take a break, I come back and set a new line and say that it's the first edit or the 6th edit. And then, but on a different page, I have like yardage. I have like a way to quickly calculate yardage. I have conversions. There's like a quick entry, like I'm going to calculate, like convert 7, 8, 9, and 10 inches for a sock. And I'm going to do those really quickly. For some things, I do it in my spreadsheet with all the sizes side by side. But if it's just a quick thing that I need to, then I'll do a quick data entry. So yeah, the template is probably my biggest thing. Stitch Mastery, of course. I didn't buy that right off the bat because it was like a $90 investment. So I couldn't justify that in the beginning, but now I couldn't live without it.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, 100%. That was like the first thing that I saved up for in my business. With Stitch Mastery as a knitting technical editor doing charts. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. A couple other things that I keep nearby is a Frankenswatch. This is my current one.
Frankenswatch. All right, I'm going to show the Frankenswatch. Mine is a rainbow, it's like fuzzy rainbow yarn.
Oh, that's fun.
With a marker stuck in it.
That's how it goes.
Frankenswatch.
Yeah, so I have the ability to knit in my head, but every now and then I still need to see it on the needles.
Yeah.
So, yeah. A couple other things are probably the most used books are Cast On, Bind Off.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Because it shows comparable cast-ons to bind-offs. And
like, in other words, so they match?
Yeah.
Which is really important for smaller projects, probably.
Yeah. Or like a scarf or something. You want both ends to look the same. Right. But there's like a whole table that shows cast on and bind off pairs. So it's really nice. But I also, what I do like for tech editing though, is if somebody gives a description in their pattern, or if it's one that I'm not really, really comfortable with, then I want to double check it and I'll look at this book.
Yeah, that's a great reference.
And the other one that I look at, this is Kate Atherley's book.
It's a
Beginner's
good
Guide
book.
to Knitting Patterns. I mean, this
That
is
was the second thing I bought after Stitch Mastering.
yeah, probably. So yeah, that's a really good resource. And JC Breyer has one for charts that's really nice. And of course, one of my newer acquisitions is, where'd it go? Here.
Oh
I haven't
yes.
made my way through it yet, but this will become that classic that everybody needs to buy.
Thank you.
YouTube, of course, everybody goes to YouTube, Google, Pinterest. And then I also have a few favorite thesauruses, which is interesting for a tech editor, but I still like to recommend, like, you use this word 3 times in your romance, maybe find something else. And I'll if I don't have the word right off the bat, then I'll send the designer, it's like, hey, here's I'll flag those 3 times that you use this one word in a paragraph. Right. And then I'll suggest, I like freethesaurus.com.
Yes.
And wordhippo.com.
Excellent.
So those are nice.
I'm making a list as we're talking so I can put it down into the comments below afterwards.
You're going to have to use your transcription software.
I have to use some transcription.
I'm talking so fast and I apologize.
No, you're fine.
I always talk fast anyway.
It's good. So what's the best piece of wisdom that you've heard or read lately that it doesn't have to be about knitting. Like what's resonated with you lately?
I actually heard something on the radio a couple of weeks ago. It's one of those, I don't even know, it was like some like national radio like countdown or something, but it was like in the weird, like, here's something you didn't know kind of a thing. It was like totally dumb. but it did resonate. It was something like, if you're having trouble focusing on something like math in particular, then if you just readjust your position and you sit up straight, just the act of realigning your body can help you focus.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. I don't know if it works, but I do feel like you're like, okay, let's just get down to work. And I do feel like I do that. So there's probably some sort of truth in that. So it can't hurt.
Definitely, it can't hurt to do a mind body check too.
Yeah.
Maybe stand up if you've been sitting down, or move around a little bit, or stretch.
Exactly.
I have a series of videos that I work through. Like if I really need a break, I'll do like a 5-minute desk stretch. And for some reason that will refocus me for sure.
Yeah, I think getting more oxygen in your blood, that helps too. So
definitely.
A couple good breaths.
Well, you've already given us some great advice, but do you have any advice for editors who are just starting out? So travel back in time, 11 years, and whisper some wisdom to yourself. What would you say?
Okay, first I would say don't price yourself too low. That was the worst advice I had in the beginning, because there wasn't that much information out there at the time, and there wasn't great tech editor hubs to rely on for information. Everybody kind of just worked on their own, I think. And I was trying to figure out how much to charge. And I took the advice of a friend, and she was talking to her husband, and we're like, okay, well, minimum wage is this much, but this is a little bit more than minimum wage. So like, I'm going to tell you, I charge $13 an hour.
How did they even cover your costs?
It didn't. I mean, I didn't have costs. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty sad.
Yeah, but the government takes a quarter of that.
I know. It was more of a hobby business.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you've been working with somebody, you don't want to slam them with a $20 increase in their rate.
Oh, so then you were stuck having
I was stuck there. And I hate begging for people for money, and I hate asking for more. Right. And yeah, it's just like this embarrassing like cycle of I finally have pulled myself out of the trenches of the low rate. So that's my first thing. And I think a lot of editors nowadays are getting that information, that advice to, I mean, it is like, as somebody who has crawled out of that price, to see somebody, like, if I'm charging $20 and you see somebody who's brand new come in at $30, you're like, well, how does this work?
Yeah.
So I mean, that whole comparison thing is still a mind game. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
it's
fantastic. No, it comes back to what you said at the beginning about knowing your value. Like,
yeah, exactly.
your
And you
skills
don't know
are
that in the
valuable.
beginning. You don't know how good you are until you get there and you have
Right.
11 years of experience to look
Yeah.
back on.
That's
But my
fantastic.
other advice would be to really consider before you buy into a program. You know, there's so many webinars and courses and business collectives, and buy this now, you have 24 hours. It's going to go up from $97 to $127. That's like the magic price, isn't it? And really consider, like, if you're willing to do the work, if it's really going to be worth it to your business, and can you afford it? Like, really, can you afford it? Consider, like, how many hours is going to take you,
To
how many
work.
patterns is going to take
Right.
of editing to, or designing for that matter. How many patterns will you have to sell to offset that cost? And if it's going to be worth it, and are you actually going to do the work? And then you have to do the work. So I think, they all sound magical, and they think, oh, I'm going to do this, that
Yes.
everything's going to be just like the secret sauce. And then you're like, oh yeah, maybe it wasn't so much. So I've fallen victim to a few of those.
Yes, I
But
have
I
too.
have been, like the Tech Editor Hub, I'm, like, all in, and
Thank
I'm
you.
determined. I know. It's such a great community to be a part of, so I'm really, really thankful for it. So
Awesome. So, what's something in your business that you are happy worked out differently than you expected?
one of those businesses, one of those, like, collectives that I did buy into and I was determined to make work was, the Swatch Studio with Frenchie, who is
Yeah,
Aroha Knits.
Aroha Nets.
And, um, so I don't remember exactly the situation, but I had put myself out there. So I think putting yourself out there is the thing,
Mhm.
without being cocky about it and being a know-it-all. But sometimes it can lead to some surprising opportunities. So there was one time, or over the course of several times probably, where we were talking about pattern design. It was a design group rather than editing. But
And just let people know this doesn't exist
right,
anymore,
right.
and
Thanks.
this was a special window in our industry history. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it closed about a year and a half ago, I think.
Mhm.
Or maybe it was, yeah, it was a year and a
4
half
years
ago.
ago, yeah.
But in some of the discussions about pattern design, I had kind of given some of my tech editing perspective on, like, best practices on maybe this is a better way to write this
Right.
line of instructions or something. And, after a few of those comments, Frenchie had contacted me about editing, like, a whole collection of 7 patterns and to write the romance for them. Like,
Wow.
okay. So that was like this one of those things where you just happen to be at the right place at the right time and you open your mouth at the right time. And then from there, apparently she liked what I had to say. And then I became one of her specialists for like 4.5 years. So
That's
I was like
awesome.
one of her go-to people there. So yeah, that was a lucky opportunity, I think.
But you did put yourself out
I
there.
did,
You
yeah,
didn't
that was,
hide.
but it didn't take a whole lot of effort, just saying
Right,
what I knew,
right.
what I was comfortable with.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's awesome. Hey, we're gonna come up to the end of my question list here. So if you're watching live and you have a question for Bronwyn, toss it into the comments in the live chat if you're watching live in YouTube. All right, so tell us, what's your favorite way to take a break from editing?
Aside from knitting and crochet, of course, I like to dabble in lots of other crafts, just kind of like one-offs. You know, my Pinterest feed is full of all kinds of weird, wacky crafts. I used to give lots of really
Are
strange.
things with pipe cleaners, or are we
Oh,
talking
I've done pipe
about like
cleaners. Like I did this craft at the library where it's like a little plastic bauble. It's
yes.
like a clamshell thing, but it's books. It's like a foam. It's like the craft foam, but
Yeah.
then this totally wasn't my idea, by the way, but we downloaded pictures of like book covers, and then if you can see, did a
Yes.
good one.
Hold on, I'm gonna spotlight you again. Ah, look at that. Michael Connolly, the Black Echo. That's
You got me.
awesome.
So,
So
so yeah, just like goofy things like that. Like the other day, I made this. It's a, I don't know, you can see this, my name.
yes. Love
I made that.
it.
It's an I-cord wrapped around like aluminum wire. So I like to do all kinds of strange things.
And
Um,
Legos. I see Legos behind
and
you.
Lego kind of consumes our house. Here and here you can't see, but I have puzzles they look like Legos. Lego bricks. That's a thing. But we have like hundreds of thousands of Lego in my house, and it's totally awesome. Like I have a
I love
world
it.
map, and I have a mosaic of my son's face, and it's like my
So
favorite thing.
cool. All right. So we're getting some great questions. Are you ready? So
Sure.
Jen asks, I have a theory that editors are also readers. I don't think
Yes.
I think that's facts. Is that true for you? And if so, have you read anything good recently?
Yes, it is. I am a reader. I haven't read anything great recently. A book that I read about a year ago that still I think about is Remarkably Bright Creatures. And it's about this octopus who escapes his aquarium, and it's so adorable. Like totally adorable. I'm in love with this octopus. So I recommend that wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you for
yeah.
that. And I'm going to put some bookshop.org links into the comments below so that people can go and get them, or search your library for sure first. All right. Misha Fraz knits. What is your favorite type of pattern and or stitch technique to edit?
Let's see. Anything but sweaters. Sarah, Sarah knows this. I don't like to edit sweaters, and I don't like to knit sweaters. I think that's probably the why. I don't know why I don't like to knit sweaters. I think it's more of I want something a little bit more instant gratification. Not instant, but more instant than a sweater. But I do like accessories. I like toys. Anything but sweaters, honestly. Like anything that I'll knit.
It's
I
like
really
there's the circle with a line through it, no sweaters, and
kind
everything
of.
else.
I mean, I will do them. I don't do it very often. But I like lace shawls. I'm pretty good at finding the repeat on shawls and recommending, like, maybe if you shift it this way, it'll flow out nicer. Or if you just wait like 2 more rows, it'll be so much better. Or add a 2-row stripe of stockinette, and it will repeat nicely. So sometimes it's really hard to see that until you chart it out. But yeah, I like shawls. I like cowls. I like socks, even mittens and hats, blankets. I'm getting a blanket later this afternoon. Toys. I do lots of gnomes. If you guys knit gnomes,
Oh,
that might
yes.
be my pattern that I edited. Yeah, just about anything besides sweaters.
I love it.
But a stitch technique, kind of anything. I like lace. I like stockinette, of course. I do lots of garter. For one particular designer, does a lot of garter stitch and modular designs. Yeah, throw it at me. I like it.
That's awesome. Julie asks, Bronwyn, do you tech edit your own patterns or do you use someone else? And that's a great question.
Yeah.
This is an important question.
Okay, so it's a bit controversial for sure. I have tech edited my own patterns before. I have had them tech edited by other people. It kind of depends on the situation, where I'm really good at separating myself. Like I can take a break and come back to something a couple of days later and see it with pretty fresh eyes. For things that are more like things that I was worried about as I was just designing them, like I'm not sure that the knitter will understand what I'm saying here. Then if it's that kind of a design, then I'll definitely have it tech edited by somebody else. So yeah, I think more often I would probably pay somebody to tech edit for sure, but I am good at editing my own work. I feel.
That's excellent. So let's wrap this up. My final question for you is, what are your hopes for yourself?
I don't know exactly what this looks like yet, but I like it when a designer will come to me kind of in the design process and ask if, like in a shawl, for instance, is there a good way to fill in the extra like partial repeats on the edge of the shawl? If, they need me to help them with that, I would certainly be happy to do that. Or if they're like before they waste all their time writing out like the formatting for the repeats, or like deciding on should I use an asterisk or should I use brackets, that kind of a formatting for the actual written instructions. If they come to me before and like give me a sample of a few rows and say, hey, am I on the right track here?
Right.
Then it'll save both of us a lot of time in the end. So I feel like if I could play a bigger role in that like consultant type of a position for designers, then I think I could really help the designers in the long run.
Making a smoother process for them through
and teaching them along the way, because if I can teach them the whole teach a man to fish kind of thing,
right.
Where if you help them out in the beginning and say, this would be really nice, like in the future, if you started this on like 2 rows or 4 rows later, then it will flow out more nicely. Or this kind of a stitch pattern would be better in a crescent shawl versus a triangular shawl, or the other way around, just based on the increasing that you're doing. So yeah, I don't know exactly, like I said, I don't know exactly what that would look like, how I would kind of encapsulate that. But I've had a few clients come to me, actually not too long ago, say, hey, am I on the right track? And just, I think that would,
and I think people forget that as editors, we're not here to like be patronizing and like, you did this wrong, and and we're just not here to just tell you things. Our job is actually to collaborate with you.
There's absolutely no judgment. There's no judgment.
And so that's like the supreme collaboration, is like working while someone's in the weeds of designing and like touching base. How can I make this work better? So especially if you've seen so many patterns. How many patterns have you ever kept track of how many patterns you've edited?
I haven't. I should go back and count. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I wouldn't say I'm full-time by any means. Like I don't think I could support myself on this, but it's a lot. Jen is asking, are you currently taking on new clients? Absolutely.
And so then let's tell, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm Bronwyn DP. And probably the easiest way to get a hold of me would be by email. And I'll give you my personal email, or my business email is bronwynthebrave@gmail.com.
And then tell us why you chose Bronwyn the Brave.
Oh, it's so embarrassing. So it started It started way before I became an editor, like before it was even like an idea. I'd been knitting a couple of years, and I was knitting a sweater. Thank you. It was meant to be a cardigan, thankfully, knit in the round, with 2 strands of lace weight. So like 1,000,000 stitches, like literally like 250 stitches or something like that. So I've been knitting for a couple of years, and I knew obviously that you have to be careful when you join the round. But the problem, I think, is that, like, because I was doing magic loop because I needed to be a long needle, but the elbow of my magic loop kind of like went under. Does that make sense? Like
Yes.
underneath, and flipped it. But as I was knitting, I would like, I think it's twisted. I think it's twisted. And then I'd check it and it's not twisted, but I wasn't thinking through like exactly how it would happen. So essentially I knit the entire thing. It's like super crazy. I have pictures on Ravelry if you want to find it. It's classic line cardigan. I called it my twist, steak, and shout cardigan.
You knit the entire thing as a Mobius?
It's not exactly a Mobius because it was a full twist. It was crazy. So how I got my name was that I realized it because I just kept knitting. I'm like, I think it's gonna work. I think it's gonna be fine, because I knew that I was gonna cut it. If I hadn't cut it, then it would totally have not worked. But I told you I was friends with Paula from the Knitting Pipeline, and she had a really active community on Ravelry. And so I posed the question, like, you guys, I can't believe I did this. And everybody was like on different sides. And some people would say, oh, no, honey, no, it's just rip it out. And then other people are like, yeah, I think it's going to work. Yeah, I think it's going to work. And then like a third section would say, I don't know if it's going to work, but I want to see you try. And so
I double dog dare you.
I know, it was crazy. So I had already decided that I think it would work, but then the haters made me think, well, wait a second, well, maybe not. So then I knit a tiny little sweater and I twisted it, like tried to figure out how I twisted it in the first place. And then I added the little tiny sleeves, like dinky little sleeves. It's pathetic. And then I cut it and it totally untwisted. So it worked. So then I added my own, like the actual sleeves to the sweater. And I have a picture of me with like this giant twist here in the center of my chest. It's like all shrunk up and it looks like a shrug. It's like super not comfortable at all. And so then I cut it, and Paula took a video of me cutting it, and I was like, the elation on my face was just like priceless. So I became Bronwyn the Brave then. But they were calling me Bronwyn the Brave for just trying, because that's the thing, is I've never kind of backed away from a challenge. I've always, if I want to know how to do something, I figure it out. I watch a YouTube video, I do the research, I try it, I rip it out. Like if it's a cable that I like miscrossed or I forgot to cross, I'll drop it down and save myself potentially hours of knitting versus a half an hour to fix it. So if I might as well try. That's kind of my thing. So I became Bronwyn the Brave then. And then like a couple years later, I had like, actually about a year later, I had like a major surgery, and they called me Bronwyn the Brave again. And like, Bronwyn the Brave comes back. And so that was like 12 years ago. And then like the next year or so. So I was trying to think, okay, well, what would my brand
business
be?
name?
And Paula just looked at me like, I think you know. So it kind of just all worked out.
I love it. So
yeah, it's super embarrassing that that's how it got there. But combined with like the whole Marvel universe and
right.
We're kind of like the superhero movie family. I don't like comic books necessarily, but I like the movies and the characters that are based on those. So yeah,
it's perfect. bravely seeking out all the errors in a pattern.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for being here, Bronwyn. And thank you all for joining us live for this conversation. I really appreciate you sharing so much of yourself with us.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
And if you all in the audience are interested in hearing and staying in touch with all of these upcoming interviews, which will happen about every 3 weeks for the next 6 months, do subscribe to my newsletter, which I'll put the link down below in the comments, and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you all being here. Much love to you all. Happy editing, Bronwyn.
Thank you. You too.
And I'll see you all later. Thanks for being here. Bye.
Thanks.